Okay, we're going to take this time and talk about some of the new contributing factors to homelessness. And Sarah brought up some interesting solutions regarding tiny homes, regarding having a little respect, letting people live in dignity, especially when it comes to people that are surviving out of a tent. Her concern is, hey, if it keeps them alive, if it helps them survive. And I want people like her and others that are hitting on some very important points to also be aware of a new cause for homelessness that I don't think that we've seen before. We see there's a lot of focus on these two groups right now in society, as I've been discussing in these recent videos. You have the straight up homeless, people on the streets with nothing, dependent on social services, and a basic hand up in the most fundamental of ways. These forgotten elements of our society. Often stereotyped as people that just don't want to work. And then you have the other issue, which is the housing crisis. People that have been living in homes for years, never before being faced with a situation where they can't afford the increase in rent in areas where they're seeing the rent double, in some cases triple. To the point where cities like Portland are proposing, 90-day warning limits from the landlords to let the tenants know in 90 days their rent is going to go up. And so in a day and age where we are seeing rents double, like one woman in Portland that was recently interviewed on the news, her rent went from $800 to $1,600. So that is a leading cause of homelessness, which is the increase in rent, the inaffordability of a lot of these structures. There aren't a lot of people on the off-the-grid path. However, out of that group, most people choose voluntarily to live in cities. But there is a certain percentage that I represent, that others represent, that have been displaced, that are roaming around in their RVs. Because what we're seeing in recent years, especially in areas where they've legalized marijuana, like Colorado, we're seeing the backlash against off-the-grid living and new rules and regulations. I talked about septics in Costilla County, and estimates for septics, we're talking about thousands of dollars. And this is being designed deliberately to keep the people out of those areas. And so, while we have people focusing on the straight-up homeless and the people that are in homes that can't afford the rent, what about people that are trying to live in dignity in their vehicles on property that they own in rural areas where they won't bother anyone, where they're not, near these big structures and, shopping malls and things of that nature, where they're not parking near a Walmart. And so because this is a fairly unknown and misunderstood class of human beings, a lot of them are smeared as well. Like in Colorado, for example, because they legalized marijuana, it's believed, even by some of the locals, that that is the primary reason why people moved here. That's not the primary reason why I moved here. So, I experienced that disconnect on a number of different levels. I've tried to explain to certain local people over the years what off-the-grid living is, and just simply, why this area, I believe, will be safer than other areas if you look at the world situation closely, which as well as I do, most people don't want to do. And most people are stuck in their Democrat or Republican boxes. And I see very basically a similarity between Obama supporters and Trump supporters. They're looking for somebody else to fix the problems. People are also looking for, someone to blame as well. Let's just blame this person, or let's just blame that president. That's not really how the world works. So it's not really handouts that's the solution. It's not really more welfare. It's not really public housing. It's actually leaving some of us alone and not criminalizing the fact that we've escaped the city and we're living in our RV. And this has to be discussed. Now, this has to be understood. Even if the city can't necessarily do something about that, when people have a discussion about affordable housing, when people have a discussion about homelessness, they need to also have a discussion about the new land use codes across America that are there to push people back in the city. As locals literally say, go back where you came from. As they said here, go back to Portland. Are you kidding me? Apparently, that's a really bad joke on your part because you clearly have not looked at what's going on in Portland. It's also been years since people on Facebook have asked me when I'm coming back. Fortunately, that is not taking place again this time around. I mean, some of you actually used to pull that shit on YouTube. You're probably not watching anymore if you're still a Portlander because, I spilled the beans on what I saw to be the ongoing apathetic zombie social apocalypse. You think the people of Portland that, want to believe they're hip and cool and better than the rest of the people in the nation, you think they liked it when I called out their bullshit? When I called out, a real form of white privilege in a day and age where people try to make people feel guilty. In Portland, you actually do see a very real version of that. And a lot of you that are not from Portland just don't understand because you haven't gone through the Portland experience. Those from Portland get it. They understand. So the point I'm trying to make here is that these land use code rules and regulations in these rural communities is a new contributing force to homelessness. These people don't have the money for lawyers. The ACLU is not involved. The people that are experiencing these things, they aren't the most active. I don't know very many people other than myself that are making YouTube videos about these things that are taking place either locally or nationally. There are some people that blog about off-the-grid living becoming illegal, and a lot of these people are urban dwellers. They're still living in urban areas. And in some cases, a lot of their articles come across as, well, this is why we're not even going to try. And having actually heard people say that to me for years, they constantly keep citing the same case in some cases where some guy went to jail for 30 days for harvesting rainwater in Oregon, And so sometimes people use these revelations about, this emerging police state as reasons to not even try, to remain a victim. And that's what they want. They want you to remain a victim. They want you to remain just paying your rent and not realizing how much money you're wasting. And so, I really urge America to end its war on off-the-grid living, in particular, to end its silence on this war on off-the-grid living. They need to realize they are affected by this. This is a precedent that's been set. Where counties, if they don't like you, can illegally trespass on your land, and they can target people by race. Oh, this guy looks a certain way. Let's target him. Oh, this person looks Hispanic. Let's let them live on the land. Oh, this person is this. So when you have stuff like that being allowed to take place, that's lawlessness. And, people really should look at the big picture in the society and not just think, well, I can't fix that. People actually need to educate themselves and be aware of the big picture. Because if they're aware of the big picture, then they can come to some real solutions. When people are starting to realize, okay, well, maybe welfare isn't the answer, then they're onto something. When they're talking about tiny homes, then they're onto something. But if they're only talking about everybody living in these dense population cities and not the problem with the land use codes, it's actually preventing people from living in wide open spaces so there's less homeless in areas where people want to live and reside in their $1 million homes. We shouldn't all be conditioned to live side by side, folks. This is nonsense. But it's exactly what's taking place. By the way, Joel Skousen did recommend in strategic relocation to white readers to pick white areas for their relocation for a shit hit the fan situation, because they may find if they go to other counties that are predominantly Hispanic or other, they may find themselves facing some sort of a backlash. And, I felt that was very assumptuous for him to say. And, experiencing some of the discrimination in the white world that I have myself, being mixed and seeing this disgusting ongoing attack on the Middle East that a lot of Americans seem to show no empathy for. I disagreed with Joel. I thought, well, maybe it would be better for me to be in a Hispanic area or an area where there's less white people looking for ISIS or Al-Qaeda under every rock. And part of me still does feel that way. At the same time, after this Costilla County debacle, I understand what Joel Skousen, author of Strategic Relocation, meant by that. I think Costilla County and their attack on the new lower-income white off-gridders, marginalizing them as racist because there's groups of whites coming in. I think that's a pretty good example. And so the shit hasn't happened officially, hasn't hit the fan, but as far as people losing their homes and becoming homeless and them having their own economic collapse, that has happened and it is happening. And so, the benefit of this and having technology and me being able to report to you what's taking place, and myself also being able to research what's taking place in other communities, although there's not a lot of reporting going on with the whole land use code issues. But I'll tell you what, I feel it in my bones. It's happening right now. And that's why I put out that video. Americans need to organize. At some point, more people got to respect the work that I'm doing and get over the fact that some of my stuff on this channel is controversial, that I'm not a Democrat or Republican. This political programming that so many people have that have gone off grid, that have allowed this Babylonian consciousness, left-right bullshit, Trump, Sanders nonsense. They're so distracted by that, all these false threats of this Islamic invasion, the Syrian immigrants. They're so distracted by this mainstream media nonsense that they don't even see how they're about to lose their own liberties and right to live. That we're living in a world that is regulating some of us out of existence. As far as I'm concerned, this is the number one human rights issue. So we have the homeless, and they have a right to be where they are. It's not a crime to be without a home. And we have people that are waking up to that. We have people waking up to the fact that there is not affordable housing in a lot of these areas, so people are becoming homeless, or they're living in their vehicle, or they're going off grid. Now, as I close here, we need to raise awareness to this new cause of homelessness, the land use code issues. And we need to get people involved. We need to get the legal system involved. We need people to realize that a lot of these people have gone off grid, don't have very much money left. And they're in their own unique situation. They're not exactly entirely homeless, but they don't have, for example, in many cases, a permanent address, where they can receive mail and improve their life. But they are a step up above the streets. And if people were allowed to live somewhere where they can build and start buying plywood and buying sandbags, this would really be therapeutic for a lot of us. It would be therapeutic to me. But this is nothing short of classism. This is nothing short of control freak behavior. To demand that people have something that they really don't need to protect the environment. Compost toilets can't protect the environment. Demanding a $5,000 septic and things like this, these are inhumane. This is evil. This is evil in action. This is evil rising over humanity, where humans are expected to have something that our ancestors never had, where we're expected to become machines, to be herded into the city, to work as slaves for something that we'll never own, renting these little boxes dependent on the government for welfare. So, America needs to wake up. These stereotypes about people who want to live off grid, in many cases, are not warranted or fair. There are many of us that want to live our dreams, that want to build our own business, that want to work from home or improve our at-home business. I'm already on that path. All I need now is a studio to where I'm making videos on a regular basis. But just look at a guy like me and all the content that I've created and realize that I have nowhere to go. There's no hand up for me, but yet I keep speaking, you see? And I will continue as time goes on. For now, I'm Alex Ansary signing off for April 24th, 2016. From some back street here, probably behind another welfare building, on a Sunday. Alamosa, Colorado, signing off.